and welcome to a very special AVForums podcast. We're here this evening to talk about the best TVs of 2022. And joining me tonight is Jules. Good evening, Jules.
Evening.
Not in his usual surroundings. Jules is actually teaching a calibration course in Italy at the moment. How's things over in Italy?
Apart from a stinking cold I picked up before I came out, we're having a good time, good course, and I'll be ordering a pizza for room service later. So
okay,
living it up.
Yeah, living in style. So the awards went live on Monday. So that was Monday the 14th. The 14th of November. So if you're watching this podcast a little bit later, you're probably wondering what we're talking about. So 14th of November, the awards were announced. The same as last year, basically more or less the same categories and some interesting bits and pieces to go through. I'm going to preface this with, there's no such thing as a perfect TV. I need to make that very, very clear. What we're going to talk about tonight in the awards are incredibly subtle differences between basically the same technology or various slight iterations of the same technology. We're talking about very, very small differences, the type of differences that you're really only going to notice in the way that you're using the TV properly when it's calibrated or in the best out-of-the-box preset. That's the way our TVs are tested when we review them. We do not test them in vivid mode. We don't test them in any other inaccurate mode. It's a complete nonsense doing that. Anybody that does that clearly doesn't understand image fidelity, which is the main important thing. And TVs and display devices are the only products really where there are clear standards laid down that says red must look like this, yellow must look like this, etc., etc. And the TV must be able to do that, or the projector must be able to do that to be accurate. So I wanted to get that out of the way first of all. The differences we're going to be talking about are very, very slight. So you are on the internet, you see forums like AVForums, you also see YouTube videos and everything else where people are making huge claims about how this OLED is so much better than this other OLED and so on. The differences are just not that big. There are differences, but they're not huge. So we're going to go through the awards tonight. If you have any questions, the chat window is open. Feel free to ask your questions. Myself and Jules will try and answer them. We're talking about products that both of us should have seen. There are some new products here which Jules hasn't seen just because they virtually arrived just before we put our awards together and reviewed quickly so they could be considered. Again, 2022 has been a difficult year. Things have been delayed. Things are still quite delayed in terms of products coming to market on time and reviews turning up on time and so on. It's been a bit of a strange year in that respect, and quite a few TVs have actually turned up late in the day. So again, some TVs Jules hasn't seen is just because the TVs have been late arriving and just made our deadline for these awards. So let's kick off. We're going to do it in order. The article is on AVForums. If you want to work your way through the article with us, you'll find it on the homepage. And we're just going to do it in order, and we'll talk about each TV and we'll talk about the categories in question. And like I say, if you've got any questions, even if you're watching this or listening to this later in the week, then podcast@avforums.com on the email, or you can go to the podcast forum, AVForums. It's down the bottom of the forum list. Go there, find this podcast and ask a question in the chat thread, and myself and Jules will pipe up with any of the answers for those questions. So kicking off tonight, best value gaming TV. This has been it's been a bit of a difficult year for value TVs in terms of getting them through for review, because even though things have been delayed, everything kind of turned up at the same time. So normally I would see a number of value TVs. And when I talk about value TVs, I'm talking about around about the £500 to £1,000 sort of price area. Haven't been able to do a lot of that this year. But one TV that I have seen, and which was really quite impressive for the SRP, but when it fell under £100, at £500, sorry, it became a bit of a bargain. So that's the TCL C735. Now, I'm going to caveat this. This is an LCD TV. We all know what the technical limitations of LCD technology are, which is normally viewing angles, backlight control, depending on what kind of backlight it's using, and of course the type of light that it's using. Thankfully, or maybe not, we no longer get CCFL backlights. Everything's LED these days, mainly for costs in terms of running electricity and so on. A CCFL backlight did use a bit more power than LEDs. This TV in question is a global dimming TV. So, Jules, maybe you could quickly go through for the listeners what the different types of backlighting are these days in terms of LCD technology.
Yeah, well, you've got edge lit displays, which obviously describe themselves. They're taking the light from the edge of the panel, trying to and they're sort of spreading it across the display. You've got full array local dimming ones where you'll have the LEDs arrayed behind the actual LCD panel itself, which are lighting up in zones. You might have sort of any number of dimming zones depending on the quality and the price of the TV. Obviously, the more zones, usually the more expensive. So yeah, that's why they break into.
Yeah. So again, when you've got a light behind anything that you can't switch off, you're going to have issues if you can't block that light properly. Yeah. So that is usually the issue with LCD. And of course, we got newer technologies coming along. It's the same thing, just iterations of the same thing. So mini LED's been a big thing this year as well. But again, it's a technology which is still in its infancy and it needs a bit more work. And a lot of the time, what happens with these TVs is it comes down to the local dimming algorithm that's used to control the different zones. No such issue with the TCL. Like I say, it's a global dimming, so it doesn't have zones or it's not full array or anything like that. It's quite a basic design. But saying that, it does have all the benefits of a modern TV. It has Dolby Vision, it has HDR10+, which are dynamic metadata formats. When you're talking about this TV as well, it's not a very bright TV when it comes to HDR. You're not going to get that around about £500. So this is when Dolby Vision and HDR10+ become valuable, because the way that they match the content to the capabilities of the display is far superior than using just a static metadata from HDR10, for example, which just gives the brightest and the black level. Dynamic metadata works differently. It tells the TV what the brightest part should be, what the darkest part should be, scene by scene or frame by frame. And that helps a display like this that has limited capabilities when it comes to light output. But it got the award for gaming. And the reason for that is it has two HDMI 2.1 ports. It does 144 Hertz on HDMI 1. It will support 4K 120 on HDMI 2. It has AMD FreeSync Premium, ALLM, which is auto low latency mode, VRR, variable refresh rate, input lag measured in at 13.2 milliseconds for 4K 60, 7.7 milliseconds for 120. And this was all tied in with the TCL game bar as well. Manufacturers introducing a game bar this year, which lets you know what your frame rate is, what technologies you have switched on, if you've got VRR switched on or off, and so on. And to get that under £500 and to get image quality, which was really quite decent, do not watch this in a dark room is my only advice. And it would always be the same advice for an LCD. Watch it with some ambient light or a backlight or some kind of light in the room, which should help mitigate some of the issues seen with LCD TVs. So that was the first winner of the evening, the TCL C735. Best value gaming TV. So well done, TCL. We've got two more gaming categories. We'll get through them quite quickly because they're very, very similar. So best gaming TV, we went to the 42-inch C2. Now, Jules, we've been waiting for small screen OLEDs for a while. Great to see them this year.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gaming, I occasionally game on a huge projection screen, but generally speaking, you're not going to want to do that. So it's really great to have these smaller OLED screens in for that purpose. I've calibrated the 42-inch C2. It's terrific. Great television. Fantastic. Yeah. So.
Yeah. It won the award for best gaming TV, mainly because 42-inch, it seems to be a sweet spot in terms of a gaming display. You can put it on a desktop. You can sit quite close to it. I tried a 48-inch C2 as well as a 48-inch Philips to do video editing, and that was just too big to sit on a desk, you really need to have a little bit of distance from that size of display. But 42-inch just seems to be like a sweet spot for that. So whether you're video editing or whether you're gaming or whatever, it seems to be a great size. And again, LG do gaming better than anybody else at the minute. Other brands are catching up, but they have been at the forefront in terms of compatibility, connections, all that kind of thing. So you get 4 HDMI 2.1 48 gigabits per second ports, 4K 120 HFR. You get variable refresh rate, NVIDIA G-Sync, AMD FreeSync, along with ALLM. In terms of input lag, 12.9 milliseconds with 4K 60, down to 9.2 when you use the input delay boost. And then you can have that again if you use 4K 120 signal as well. So excellent TV for gaming. And of course, you get all the benefits of OLED. So you can game in the dark on an OLED. You get that dynamic range. And of course, HDR. It's still a bit hit and miss when it comes to gaming. Sometimes the game's tone map and the TV tone maps at the same time, and you get clipping issues and so on. And it tends to be a title by title basis as well. So as long as you take care in terms of setting up for HDR playback, you can get astonishing visuals. And the same goes for the best advanced gaming TV this year. Another LG model, but the G2 this time. G2 is a cracking TV. We're going to come back onto it in a minute. Basically, one of the best TVs LG's ever made. The design is fantastic. It's the Gallery series, so it's designed to hang on a wall, which means that the panel depth is a little bit thicker than a normal OLED, but that's because all the electronics and speakers and connections are all built into the chassis, and it's nice and flat at the back, so it can be hung on a wall. With the cable management as well, which is recessed into the back of the panel as well, so you don't have cables, pushing the TV out or anything like that. And it comes with a wall mount in the box, which makes it a lot easier. So that's the advanced gaming TV, and the reason it got advanced is mainly because it has that OLED Evo panel. It's pushing 1000 nits peak brightness, and that's in the accurate modes as well. We're not talking about inaccuracy here. We're talking about filmmaker. You're pushing 950 to 1000 nits. So yeah, it's a great TV for that. And then gaming wise, of course, you got your 4 HDMI 2.1 inputs, 48 gigabits per second, 4K 120, ALLM, VRR, NVIDIA G-Sync, AMD FreeSync. You've got everything on there. Again, input lag 12.9 milliseconds, 9.2 with the boost delay. And of course, the game optimizer bar, which is also on the 42C2, which again is a nice visual sort of representation of what you're seeing on screen, your frame rate, if VRR switched on, that kind of thing. So yeah, any disagreements on our choices for the gaming TVs?
Absolutely not. No, that G2 is really sexy. When it's on the wall, it looks fantastic. And that, I've measured them at about 950 oddish nits, really bright. It competes with the other top models of coming out from Sony and Panasonic. Calibrates extremely well. It's I think LG, I've just for gaming particularly, they are where gamers are going for that, and with justification as well. So I think if you're a gamer, you've got to take a look at the C2 and the G2.
Yeah, we're going to come back onto the G2 and we'll talk a little bit more about its picture quality when we get to that. But we're going to move to sound just for the next 2 awards. Sound is still an important thing. Sound-wise, it's very important these days that you do have some kind of sound solution. Even if you have an external sound system, you don't want to switch it on all the time when you've got the TV on. So a TV does have to sound good. And when you're moving to OLED, that's where you can run into issues because you just don't have enough physical air to move to create great sound. But Sony have done it a little bit differently, and they get the best TV sound of 2022 for their Acoustic Surface Pro Audio Plus, and that's from the Sony A95K. We'll come back to talk about the A95K in a little while. But basically, Acoustic Surface, if you've never seen it, never heard of it, it's 2 actuators behind the screen towards the top, 3/4 of the way up the screen. And there's also 2 traditional bass woofers further down the set to give you the lower end of the frequency scale. But the clever thing here is that these actuators vibrate the screen. and that's what gives you the sound. And the biggest plus point for me is that voices actually come out of people's mouths, and that might sound strange, but in a world where TV speakers are underneath the screens, or if you're watching on a projection system and you've got speakers underneath the screens and not behind the screen, you get that little bit of a disconnect because the sound's coming from a different place than that person is in your field of view. When you can get the sound coming from that person's mouth, it just makes a big difference. And if you've never heard it before, go experience it. Acoustic Surface Audio Plus is a great system. It's been around for a while. It's won 3 of these awards, or maybe even 4 of these awards over the years. And again, it's another classy design from Sony, which means that they don't have to worry about sound system or a speaker bar or anything like that. They can then concentrate on the design of the TV and love it or hate it. The A95K has a very striking design this year, and the stand that people love and more people hate, but we'll come back to that a little bit later on. So that was our first award for sound, was the Sony A95K, the Acoustic Surface Pro Plus. And then Best Luxury TV Sound, and we're giving that to the Philips OLED Plus 937 by Bowers & Wilkins. And this is a proper Bowers & Wilkins speaker bar that's attached to the TV. This is, I think, the 4th iteration of this design. They've stepped it up again this year. They've added more technology in here, Bowers, and they've done a bit more in terms of adding to the audio quality. And I've got to say, the TV sitting over there in the corner, I really don't want to give it back because it's an absolutely cracking TV, and the sound is astonishing. It really is. It makes a big leap forward. Anybody can stick a soundbar under a TV, and that's a route that a lot of people will take. In this instance, you're buying a whole luxury TV all in one. And it's not just the sound, it's also the functionality that goes with that. The speaker bar is the stand for the TV. It also handles the cable management down the back of the TV. And the sound quality is astonishing. So it's a 5.1.2 system this year. It uses new improved drivers, better decoupling from the enclosure, so you get no rattles or anything from the speaker bar. The other thing is the speaker bar being decoupled from the screen. That's a big advantage as well. So you're not having any issues with surround that way. Again, the performance on offer, it's a nice wide soundstage. It has the new sideways firing speakers, which are supposed to bounce off the side walls and go behind you to create an enveloping horizontal surround. And then you've got the height speakers that come from the sound bar or speaker bar as well, which bounce off the ceiling and give you the Atmos height effect. Now, I will be honest, you don't get much behind you. You don't have any physical speakers behind you. You can't expect that same performance, Jules. But even so, a nice big wide open soundstage and everything built into one where you've got the best panel, the best sound. People still want that kind of thing. People are downsizing from big 5.1, 7.1 systems. They're looking for quality.
I'm into my audio as anybody else is, but sometimes it's my wife who says you're not having speakers in the living room. So I got a sound bar, and it's exactly what you described in the previous segment about the Sony. Sometimes the sound is disembodied, and I'm not, it's not great. So it sounds really good. I've not seen this Philips yet. I've got some booked in to do. So I'd be really interested to hear what they sound like, and it sounds like it could be a really good solution to that problem that we have with the lifestyle look, but also getting a decent quality sound into your living room.
Yeah, I mean, it does look gorgeous. They really have spent the time, and they've learned from previous iterations as they've gone along it. And we'll come back to Philips later in this podcast and talk a little bit about them. But the Bowers & Wilkins side of things, and that tweeter on top design, if you've ever heard the difference between the Bowers & Wilkins speakers with the tweeter built in and then the tweeter on top, there is a big difference when you decouple that tweeter and get it a little bit further up on it. And it's a really, really nice, well-bodied sound, the type of thing that you expect from Bowers & Wilkins. And you can sit and listen to music. I do during the day when I'm writing. I'll put some Spotify or Tidal through the TV. Sounds excellent. So well done, Philips and Bowers & Wilkins, for winning that award. Best smart TV system goes to LG's WebOS 22, and the reason it's 22 is that they now name it after the year that this iteration is launched, so 2022-22. I don't need to go into WebOS too much, Jules. It's been around for a number of years now. In fact, it's probably 10 years since it was launched, if not longer, and it's improved. It's still stable. It's still fast. It still does everything that you expect it to do. Dolby Vision through it, Dolby Atmos content. It doesn't have any issues. Whereas, ties in on a Samsung TV, you're not always guaranteed that that's going to be the case. Certainly not with Dolby Vision. And again, minimal fuss when using the system. It's quite intuitive. People can usually, pick up the remote with the magic wand and crack on and get used to using it. It's a little bit different in terms of it takes a full screen. I don't know where you stand on this one. I much prefer the sort of lower third approach, where you can see what's happening on the screen and you can see WebOS in the bottom half of the screen. They've changed that now. It's all full screen as soon as you enter WebOS. Where do you stand on that one?
I don't have any strong opinions about that, to be honest. I'm a big fan of WebOS. I mean, you talk about the small differentials between different panels, and we can talk about peak output and other things like that. How easy the TV is to use and find what you want, for me, is a big factor.
Yeah.
And when I gave my 82-year-old dad, my old, I say old, it's only a couple of years old, my old LG OLED, within 10 minutes, he'd picked the remote control up and was finding YouTube and things like that. He's a mad fan of YouTube now, which I'd never thought. Yeah. But and thanks to the OS being so easy to sort of get used to, just like a Nintendo Wii, you just point and click, and that's it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a big selling point.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, well done to LG's WebOS. Another win for WebOS this year. Don't forget the chat window is open if you're watching us live on YouTube. Ask your questions in there. Myself and Jules will do our best to get those answered tonight as we go through the awards. If you want to follow us going through the awards, and again, you're watching live or you're listening a little bit later in the week, then it is on the homepage. Go find it, and then you can scroll through as we do. If you don't want to do that, Stuart's doing that for you right now. If you're watching the video on the right hand side, so you've also got that option. So yeah, get your questions in tonight if you are watching us live on YouTube. So best TV picture processing, and again, it's another win for Philips P5 AI Plus picture processor. They don't come with short names, these features, but again, Danny Tack and his team at TP Vision, they're doing a lot of good things. This is where things move away from what myself and Jules preach. But there's room for it. And it's one of the things that Philips does better than any other manufacturer in the TV sphere, is that if you want accuracy, they'll give you accuracy. If you want good motion, they'll give you good motion. If you want a vivid mode that is balanced, but still has over-the-top colours and a lot of brightness and so on, Philips will do that for you. They'll give you, and they've taken time and care to make sure that, yes, they're not giving you accuracy in some of the picture modes that the processor is doing, and some of the processing that it is doing in terms of noise reduction and so on. But again, it's not over the top. If you look at other manufacturers, they don't seem to take as much care in terms of how the processing works, and it seems to be off or on full. There's no gradation there in terms of how these features work, and it's something that Danny takes a lot of pride in. And I bang my head quite a bit with Danny, with our philosophies of how pictures should look and so on. But I have that much respect for him as well, because he has a goal that he's aiming for, and he's taking his time and using the processing power to achieve what it is that he wants. But again, you've got that choice, and the picture processor as well does help with the motion. Upscaling is very good on the Philips as well. It's not over the top. You're not getting any forced digital look there. So yeah, it's a great processor. It does a lot of things that are very, very good, and the dual chip version on the OLED Plus 937 is very, very powerful, and a lot of nice features in there, like the noise reduction, some of the stuff that it's doing there in terms of gradation, and actually processing at 12-bit instead of 10-bit, and helping with the image quality in that way. This all helps, and can be married with accuracy as well. And the Philips TVs do get very, very accurate out of the box as well. So whatever your poison is, Philips seem to have it with the P5 processor. And again, another worthy winner there. So we get on to the exciting stuff, Jules. Now we get to talk about the TVs and the picture quality and stuff that we value a lot. So best HDR TV surprisingly doesn't go to an LED LCD TV with its peak brightness and all the rest of it, because I think we're getting to the point now where peak brightness isn't everything, and people are now starting to understand that peak brightness isn't everything. It helps.
Yeah.
And if you've got good peak brightness, it really does help bring the dynamic range to an HDR image, but it's not the be-all and end-all, Jules, of what makes up a good HDR image, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, we touched on it at the beginning. Obviously there are alternative technologies. You can drive a higher peak brightness with a sort of something like a QLED, but that comes with other associated flaws, so blooming and things like that. It's about high dynamic range. So if you're raising your black floor at the same time you're kicking out a hell of a lot of light, then you haven't really achieved your goal.
Yeah.
So there's no perfect technology, as you said right at the very beginning. So what we're seeing now is not just the Samsung QD-OLED based panels, but also the LG based panels are also upping their peak output too. We're seeing that in the Panasonic and the LGs, and of course remember that most content is graded to 1000 nits. So when you've got TVs, in the case of the Samsung, which isn't listed here, but the Samsung S95B, which I've measured at just over 1000 nits, and these other ones here which are getting near 1000 nits, it becomes, it's less of a moot point now for me. So we're talking about the Sony here as well. One of the things that we've wanted to see from OLED for a little while is more color volume. Because those LG produced panels have a white subpixel, and as they get brighter, the color volume falls away. It doesn't carry on with the brightness but the Sony and the Samsung's not listed here, but the QD-OLEDs have a little bit more color volume on them, and I think it is visible. It's there, but and it's really nice to see that. This Sony A95 is great.
There's other attributes as well with, so we're talking about the Sony A95K. It wins best HDR TV. And a lot of the points that you raised there are exactly why it's won the award this year. But some of the things that I want to pick up on, we're talking about WRGB from LG. It uses the white subpixel. QD-OLED, it's a blue OLED, uses a QD filter for red and green. So RGB, you don't have the white subpixel in there. So, of course, you get the better color volume. But when you have the two technologies side by side and you're looking at color volume, with the vast majority of material that you watch, you're going to see not a lot of difference in terms of the actual color volume. I know a lot of people make a lot of fuss on the internet about this and videos about, these TVs are amazing because of the color volume and so on. And then I think people see these TVs and they think, well, what's all the fuss about? Because it is quite subtle. The differences that we're talking about here, they are different. They are better, but they're not, it's not a huge night and day difference. It's a great step in the right direction with the technology. White point as well. And certainly how we see white point. When you put these two TV technologies together, they look very, very different. When it comes to white, WRGB looks cyan. QD-OLED looks red. When you see them together, looking at a white, window or a full field white pattern. And again, it's the different technologies, different makeup of how it's making up that image as well. So there are differences. The reason the Sony won it is not necessarily its peak brightness, not necessarily its QD-OLED panel, and not particularly its color volume. It's all those things mixed with Sony's vast knowledge of grading displays. These are the guys who create the stuff the professionals work on. They know what a good image is. They know what accuracy is, and their image processing is amongst the best out there. The motion is amongst the best out there. And when you put all of that together, it's an expensive TV, the A95K. There's no getting around that. But if you are a movie fan and you want the best, And again, we're talking about, subtle differences, but subtle differences in the right direction when it comes to movie playback. And if you want to see something that looks very, very close to a professional grading monitor that costs 30,000, 40,000 pounds from a TV that is still expensive at nearly £3,000, or £3,500 if you go for the 65-inch, it's a lot of money, but you are getting the performance here, and that's why it won HDR TV of the Year. Over and above what people normally think, QLED is going to be the winner here. Not necessarily. Like Jules says, if you're talking about dynamic range, you have to have the black level, and if you're pushing brightness yet raising your black floor, that's not high dynamic range. So yeah, that's why the Sony wins that one. Well done, Sony. Moving on, best TV design. Very subjective, this, which is not normally what we do, Jules. We normally work on objective data and other things, but design does play a part. I've already said how beautiful I think the Philips OLED Plus 937 looks in the flesh. It's been sitting in the living room for a few weeks now, and I adore it. I think it looks amazing. But again, it's subjective. But the reason I've given it is not just because of the looks, but it's also functionality. There's a lot of functional design tweaks here. So it's the speaker bar is the stand. The way it's connected to the panel, it makes the panel look like it's floating above the speaker bar. And then you've got Ambilight, and Ambilight is just if you've never seen Ambilight, you've never used Ambilight, you might just think, oh yeah, well, it's just LED lights behind a TV. How different can that be? Well, big difference actually. And when you don't have it, when you've had it for a while and then you don't have it, you think, oh, I miss my Ambilight. I really like that. And again, it's another part of the design aspect of the TV. You bring all that together, and you really do have a luxury item, something that looks really nice. Bowers and Wilkins is there as well, so that's a luxury brand. The speaker fabric's lovely. The remote control has Muirhead leather on the back of it. Just gives it that little bit of touch of class, and that's why it got design of the year, the Philips OLED Plus 937. You haven't seen one yet.
No, I've got some on the slate for the new year, so we'll see but looking at the review, the pictures, it does look very nice indeed. I mean, it certainly looks better than my C1 offering with my soundbar shoved underneath the front end of it. So I think it looks really nice.
Right, let's move on. Another category, another Philips that wins it, and that's a bedroom and kitchen TV or second TV, Jules. And again, it's because of the picture quality, but also the screen size. The problem has been, if you wanted OLED, you wanted the best picture quality, you wanted something to match what you had in the living room in a second room. Very difficult. You had to have a 55-inch or above when it came to OLED. Now you've got 42, 48.
A lot of choice.
You got a choice now. You got really nice designs, and again, Ambilight. If you want that functionality, you want gaming as well. So it's just a great all-rounder. So the Philips OLED 48 OLED 807 was our winner here, basically because it's a 48-inch, really thin, slim design. It can be wall-mounted. It can be put at the side in a second room. It can be used as a gaming TV. It has Ambilight. It's got two HDMI 2.1 inputs. SDR, HDR look great. It does accuracy. It's got the P5 processor on there as well, so you can have deadly accurate, or you can have personal preference. The choice is there as well, and it sounds all right. It doesn't have the Bowers and Wilkins on board, but it sounds good as well. So there's lots of choice out there for a second room TV, but that was kind of our choice. Anything else that people should maybe consider or look at, Jules?
Well, I think it's going to boil down to the size, isn't it? I mean, to be honest, I'd be shocked if I suggested having a TV in the bedroom. So it's never going to appear in our bedroom. But I do calibrate for people, and I can walk in and see there's a 65-inch TV in the bedroom, or even bigger. And I guess my personal point is that's a bit too big for a bedroom. So I guess if 48 inches probably hitting the sweet spot for that. So. There's no reason why this isn't.
That's twice 12 inches, isn't it?
A bit of Ambilight as well. It's got that in it, hasn't it? So you can have a nice relaxing light show whilst you're relaxing in the evening with some music, maybe.
Well, the other thing with Ambilight, and I think people don't actually realise how advanced Ambilight is, you can have Ambi sleep as well, so it'll wake you up in the morning. I think you can buy those lights that sit at the side of the bed and they come on
Yeah.
in the morning to wake you up naturally. And so, and the TV will do that for you with Ambilight as well. It's
Mhm.
got all that built in. So that was the reason we picked that one. It's a cracking TV. And it has all the other features that would work in a second room. And of course, the gaming features as well, if you want to have a bit of a mixed use and so on. And of course, OLED picture quality now available, 48 and under. So there we go. Philips OLED 807 wins second TV category, bedroom, kitchen TV. Well done. Moving on, best living room TV. We're back to LG here, the LG G2 OLED Evo. This is an amazing TV. LG really have knocked it out of the park this year. They've improved their picture processing this year. It's a lot faster, it's a lot quicker, it's a lot more accurate in terms of what it's doing. The panel, it's the same panel that's in the OLED Plus 937, the same panel that's in the Panasonic LZ 1500 and LZ 2000, and the same panel that's in the, help me out here, there's another TV and I'm it's gone, my mind's gone blank, but anyway, we'll come back. So it's the same panel used across all of them. It's the same heatsink. Obviously, different manufacturers adding the different processing sauce on top. But again, this TV almost pushing 1,000 nits in peak brightness. It has fantastic wide color gamut response as well, very close to 100%. Doesn't have the color volume that the Sony does or the Samsung, but again, it's everything else is absolutely spot on with this. Filmmaker mode is deadly accurate out of the box. Of course, you got Calm and AutoCal, which changes things at the TV level, so you can actually change the lookup tables directly into the LG TVs and calibrate it to an inch of its life. Basically, these things are deadly accurate once you get them tuned up. And again, out of the box, they're very, very good. Sound quality is excellent. Again, the design, the Gallery Series TV, that's why it'll work as a living room TV. You got the choice. You can wall mount it and it looks beautiful, or stick it on the optional feet and it looks beautiful as well. It's a fantastic design, great performance, great sound.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it won our advanced gaming TV as well, which we discussed earlier. It's got all the gaming features.
And the
really,
OS.
It's got the OS as well. So really, it is a fantastic TV. If you set this next to the Panasonic, next to the Sony A95K, next to any of the big performing TVs like the Philips OLED Plus 937 as well, set all these TVs up together, there's not a lot in it.
No.
And then when you start looking at the functionality and different use cases, again, there's not a lot in these TVs. You're going to pick something that's going to suit you and suit your environment and what it is that you want to use the TV for. They're so close now in terms of absolute picture performance, with the Sony maybe just nudging it because of that color volume advantage. But again, it's subtle. So anything else to add to the G2, Jules?
No, everything you just said, Phil. To be honest, LG may not do everything the best, but everything they do is really, really good. Especially if you're going to be a gamer as well, you're going to want this one probably over the other ones. So it ticks lots and lots of boxes. The OS is superb. It's just a great, terrific all-rounder, this TV. So yeah, I just endorse what you just said about it. I can't recommend it enough.
Yep, excellent. Moving on. Best home cinema TV. This was a bit difficult this year. This was the one that I took the most amount of time to reach my decision on, because there are things that Panasonic used to be out in front. They're hanging on with their fingernails now when it comes to picture quality, picture accuracy. They're still the most accurate out of the box. They take a lot of care to make sure that is the case in filmmaker mode, and the expert ISF modes that are on here. They make sure that they take that very, very seriously. They are a Hollywood, or they certainly market themselves as a Hollywood brand. Again, professional division, a lot of cameras, a lot of monitors and stuff do come out of Panasonic Professional and are used in the film industry. And they also employ the help from colorists and so on in terms of when it comes to fine-tuning their TVs and so on. So the main reason that the Panasonic just pipped it was out-of-the-box accuracy and the cinematic look that their processing has on the image. It's just that little bit nicer when it comes to film, when you're looking for not soft image, but a little less digital looking image in terms of image sharpness and so on, and movement and motion. And Panasonic just seemed to nail it. And color wise as well, it just has a nice hue, and they tend to nail that, Panasonic. But again, we are talking about minute differences in terms of picture quality here. And the other thing is it has a full Atmos system on it. So it has amplifier and speakers. It has a sound bar with front-firing speakers. Has side speakers as well, which bounce off the side walls. So you have got the audio system there, and you got the excellent picture quality. And Panasonic were the first to implement the heatsink technology on the TVs as well to get the higher peak brightness. So they've had quite a bit of use with that. So yeah, when it comes to home cinema, if you are going to watch in dim surroundings the majority of the time, if movies are your thing, and again, talking about downsizing audio-wise, then the LZ 2000 is a TV from Panasonic. If you already have the sound system, the LZ 1500 is exactly the same in terms of picture quality. It's the same panel. It just doesn't have the speakers built on, and you save a few quid for not having speakers that you're probably not going to use. So yeah, overall home cinema TV is the LZ 2000 from Panasonic. And then moving on, best luxury TV. Normally you associate luxury with price, not necessarily with the Philips. It's the same price as the majority of the flagship TVs here. The OLED Plus 937 won the award. And again, we've already spoken about the design, the luxury materials that's used, the Muirhead leather on the back of the remote control, the Ambilight system, the whole design with the Bowers & Wilkins sound and all the rest of it. I don't think I need to go over all that again. We've already discussed it. But again, it's excellent performance, stunning design. It looks luxurious. It has the luxury Bowers & Wilkins name attached to it as well. So yeah, that was our luxury TV of the year. The performance is excellent on this. It was a worthy winner. You ready, Jules? It's the big one. It's the best TV of 2022. I was going to say, can you guess? But you've already got the sheet in front of you.
I'm looking at it.
You've read everything about it. But yeah, it's a Sony A95K, and I guess we have to make the point again. There's no such thing as a perfect TV. And in 2022, there's a lot of choice out there, and just as many negatives as positives on these TVs. They all have their own little attributes that they do slightly better than the other, whether it's design, whether it's speakers and sound, whether it's the image quality, whether it's added color volume, or it's got more HDMI 2.1 ports. Whatever it is that you're looking for, I'm sure you will find what you're looking for out there in the market this year. But in terms of a perfect TV, there's no such thing. Right. Why does the Sony get best TV of the year is just down to picture quality. And you might be thinking, well, you've just awarded the Panasonic home cinema TV and the G2 living room TV. What makes the differences here? Why is the Sony the one that stands out in front? And again, it comes down to that subtle color volume advantage that it has with QD-OLED. And the other thing that people are not talking about, which I think is a big thing when it comes to OLED panels, and Jules, you look at a lot of these in professional environments as well as a consumer, is how clean the panels are.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah.
I mean, I just had somebody the other day, DM me about sort of, do you think if putting about 1.5% slide on their screen, what do you think of the uniformity on this? It's actually quite an anxious time, when you buy your OLED TV, and certainly forum members, many of them will be putting up slides and looking at them for their uniformity and contemplating, should I send it back? Should I roll the dice? Maybe I'll get one that's better or worse. But every single one of these I've seen has had really, really good uniformity, which is really, it's encouraging. You can buy it, and I've not seen them all, obviously, so who knows? But the ones I've seen have been excellent uniformity, and buy with a little bit more confidence.
Yeah, and I think the uniformity thing as well has improved with WRGB with age.
And they do age.
The same with burn-in. If you're looking at a C7 or a C6, you're going to get more burn-in. It's an older generation. They hadn't quite learned all the mitigation that needs to be be in place with OLED panels. And of course, the way OLED panels are made now. And of course, Samsung coming in, this is the first generation, but already the Samsung display panels, the QD-OLED panels, they do look very, very promising. Screen uniformity is great. Color volume is good. You can get accuracy. Samsung don't go for accuracy, but you can get accuracy. Sony have proven that. And again, it's a Master Series TV. They only put Master Series on the very, very best Sony products. And again, Sony know what they're doing. These guys are the guys that create the grading monitors and everything else that the content's created on. So if you want to see it as it was made, the Sony's going to get you there. And that's why it's won TV of the year. If you are a movie fan, if you want the absolute best, if you've got deep pockets, it's not cheap. It's a TV for you, and that's why it's our best TV of 2022. So well done, Sony. It's a cracking TV. And I guess we're looking forward to seeing Gen 2 QD-OLED. CES coming up soon, Jules.
Yeah, well, let's see if they can bring a bigger panel out. Because 65 inches, for a lot of people now, it's on the small side, isn't it?
65 inches too small.
Yeah,
we need bigger 77-inch QD OLEDs. That's what we need. I'm getting a dirty look from the other half now. 65's enough, I think, for this room anyway. Right, our last category of the evening. It's probably going to be the most controversial category of the evening, and that's best TV manufacturer. It could quite easily have gone to LG. LG have won it a number of times because of their work with OLED, because they put the money where their mouth was, basically, and they brought OLED technology here. I can think back to 2012 and going out to Monaco for the big launch of this new TV technology. And back then we didn't have HDR, we didn't have the issues with peak brightness and so on. It was a different world, and they've had to develop this technology and keep it relevant, basically. Plasma died out because moving up to 4K was just too much in terms of how much money they were going to have to spend to develop it. And then OLED came along, looked like a savior. Now we had HDR thrown at it, and a display that struggled for brightness for a long time. So it could have gone to LG for all of that, and they were given that award last year. But I've gone with Philips this year for best TV manufacturer, and there's a couple of reasons for that. First and foremost, the products are excellent. They really do compete with everything else on the market. They're using the same LG display panel as the majority of the flagship TVs out there. It's the exact same panel that's being used. It's been attached to their P5 processor. They do things their own way, but you can dial in accuracy with the TVs. It has Calman support for AutoCal. You've got 2 ISF modes in there. You've got Filmmaker mode. You've got IMAX Enhanced. So whatever the flavor of accuracy you're looking for, there's the different picture modes there. There is the calibration controls to make sure that the TV is tuned and calibrated perfectly to the standards. And it looks just the same as any other TV once you get them calibrated. And people who've seen these TVs together, all calibrated. It's very, very difficult to. That's the whole point of calibration, obviously. The things have to look the same. But in terms of picture quality, in terms of image fidelity, in terms of black levels and color and everything else, it really is up there. But the main thing is, it's great to see the resurgence of this TV brand. They've been in the doldrums for a long time. TP Vision took over a number of years ago, and they have worked really hard. They could have just gone with the Philips brand and kept it in the value end of the market, and made lots of money selling volume. But no, they've actually gone for the luxury market. They've set their sights high, and it's taken them a number of years to get to where they are now. But you got to hand it to them. They have developed it, and the big USP again for Philips is their Ambilight technology, which adds something a little bit different to the mix. And even if you are an image purist, Ambilight works for you. You can calibrate Ambilight.
Yeah.
The controls are on there. You can measure your wall behind the TV and find out what color it actually is, and then profile that and do your software do the calculations, and you'll be able to have perfect D65 white behind your TV. And set at the right level. Why is that important? It's what the professionals do. You see graders or editors sitting in a room for 12, 14, 15 hours a day
Yep.
editing films and so on. They do it with a bias light behind the screen because it helps with eye fatigue. And the same thing, if you've ever watched an OLED in a dim room without a light behind it, without bias light, and you've wondered why you're suddenly nodding off halfway through the film or you're feeling really tired, it's probably down to eye fatigue because, as much as the luminance is changing, your eye is also trying to adapt to that light change. And if your eye is doing that on numerous occasions through a film, you're going to feel tired, especially in the dark. So again, Ambilight brings in that bias light and it brings in that choice. And I keep coming back to choice here. It gives you that choice if that's what you want. Or you can put it on the follow video setting where the lighting will match whatever's on the screen and give you immersive effects around your picture. And I'm not going to say that's a bad thing because I've actually done it a few times and put it on that mode and sat and thought, that actually does look not right. It's not accurate. It actually looks a bit cool, actually. And I've seen demonstrations where you've had the hue lights at the side as well, all tied in and all in sync. And so yeah, again, it gives you a choice. You can have your accuracy, you can have everything, dialed into perfection, or you can have a bit of fun with it and use it to, brighten up the living room or whatever. And again, it's having watched the brand come back. That's been the satisfying thing. They've put a lot of work into it, and it's good to see small brands that have disappeared come back again, like European brands. We've seen a lot from Japan and a lot from South Korea, and they've added a lot to the market. But it's nice to see European brands, back again, back at the forefront, and great partnerships as well. I mean, another thing that sort of tipped it towards Philips was the partnership with Bowers and Wilkins. What a fantastic partnership! A great audio company, great audio added onto their TVs. Panasonic the same. They've got Technics, which was their own brand, but Bowers and Wilkins had nothing to do with TB Vision or Philips. These are two separate companies, but they seem to have come together with the same sort of goal and produce something that's really, really, really nice. So yeah, I could have given it to LG a million times over, but you know what? Philips are actually knocking things out of the park at the minute. They've got a bit of, they've got a bit of a stride going. They're confident. They're doing things right, and so yeah, well done, Philips. Manufacturer year. You're going to tell me I'm wrong, Jules, but that was my choice.
You're right about the bias lighting. We are sticklers for that kind of reference thing in a grading studio. And I can calibrate obviously the bias light to be accurate in people's homes, which is great. So, but on the other hand, if you're playing some music or whatever else, if you're having a party, I can see the attraction of having the bias light in there as well. So that could really work for people. The soundbar again, we've touched on that sounds great. Well, it should do. I'll next time I come across one, Phil, I'll put it through its paces and I'll let you know.
I know you will. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, are you saying they're the Accrington Stanley of television manufacturers, back from the dead?
Yeah, almost really. We've seen a few brands go that way. Well-known brands go that way, and that they're now starting to come back. There's been quite a few that have disappeared over the years. Sharp, Toshiba, Philips. They all kind of disappeared off the radar, but now starting to come back again. Philips have been the one that TP Vision behind them that have really pushed forward, and it's been impressive to watch. And it's also been impressive to see people like Danny Tack, who wants to engage with the community, wants to find out, what do you guys actually want on the TVs? What can we add in? How can we improve it and improve it year on year? So it's refreshing, and it's nice to see, and that's why they've picked up that award. So well done, Philips. That wraps up the awards. I'm just going to quickly have a look and see if we have any questions to wrap up tonight. And so Nigel Henry says he's got a 55-inch BX in the kitchen. He's never looked back. Again, if you can fit a 55, 65 in your bedroom or the kitchen or whatever, that's great. The reason we went with the 48 Philips was just because it's a new screen size, smaller screen size, and of course you got the 42 from LG as well if you want to go a bit smaller. So lots of choices there for a second TV. Jules Steve DR wants to know, is color volume different per manufacturer, Sony / Samsung, or same if same QD panel, or like LG display panels, can there be a difference driven by different processors? What's your thoughts on this one?
The fundamental difference is between the WRGB panel and the QD-OLED panel. So whether it's Panasonic or LG or Philips, if they're using the LG panel, they're going to share the same attributes, which is just that as it drives brighter, the color volume drops off. So I don't think you can really, you would be splitting really, really tiny hairs if you tried to say that there was a difference between any of those manufacturers as they implement that LG panel.
Yeah.
So, and as we've said also, it's not huge, it's subtle. But you can feel it. You can almost feel it when you're watching the content. You can almost feel that little bit of extra color volume, and it's really nice to see. It's very nice to see. So I don't know whether I answered the question or not, but
that's exactly how I would have answered it. They're both using the same panels, different technology, but it's the same panel across the different manufacturers, like you say. In terms of the processing, they can push things a little bit, and you can see that difference between the Sony and the Samsung QD-OLEDs. The Samsung's very red. They really push the reds, whereas Sony's a little bit more dialed back on the reds. Of course, there's that advantage because you've got the color volume, and I think Samsung really want to push that and say, hey, look at our reds, aren't they red? It's just a little bit too much, I think, and that's where you'll see subtle differences between the different tasks. But again, if you're dialing in for accuracy, there shouldn't be any if it's the same panel, there shouldn't be any processing that's changing the color or color volume in any way.
Because there is a difference in the ability of the Samsung, for example, the S95 and the Sony A95 in their ability in terms of their average picture level. If you are pushing your peak highlights, then something else has to give. So the Sony is able to slightly sustain it better than the Samsung can.
Yeah. So again, like we said right at the top of the podcast, no such thing as a perfect TV, and the differences that we're talking about and have discussed tonight are very, very subtle when it comes to what it is that you're looking for a TV. Decide what it is that you want, and then find a TV that fits that use case, because all of these flagship TVs and even some of the value options, picture quality is really, really good on all of them. All these OLEDs are absolutely stonking value. If films are your thing, then of course head towards the Sony and Panasonics. Philips will also do accuracy. The choice is there. We've hopefully pointed some of you in the right direction. If you've got any more questions, it's not an easy choice. No, I'll tell you, I'd struggle to actually pick one for my use. I'd want two, at least two. But yeah, I'm not normal. And just quickly see if we've seen anything else. What do you guys think of the A95K stand? I didn't mind it. It's a monolith design. That's what Sony's gone for. The stand behind the TV, there is a little bit of a lean back. You can't notice that once you're sat in front of it, directly in front of it. You don't notice the lean back. It doesn't affect image quality in any way. And it's a nice heavy stand, so the TV's not going to go anywhere. You do have options, though. There are Visa mounts on the back, so you could wall mount it, or you could get another designed stand with Visa connectors and put another stand on it if you wanted to raise it up and have a sound bar, for example. You would have to do that because with the stand that it uses, you can't put a sound bar directly underneath the TV. You would have to put it on a shelf underneath, or like I say, get a Visa stand to raise it up. But in terms of design, I like it. Jules, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's so as you say, it's got that slight angle to it. It's not as extreme as it was the previous tilted Sonys were, which I could have lived with them, but it wasn't my first choice. I could definitely live with this one. It's a solid stand. But as you say, there are options to mount it in different ways, so you don't have to go with that. You can
Yeah.
do it in a different way. So yeah, I don't have a problem with it. It's
Right. This is a really tough question. I don't think there's a good answer to this one. Anonymous E or Anon E. If you could put the best parts of all the current TVs together, what would the dream TV be? A Frankenstein Frankenstein monster. That's really, really difficult. I think the only thing I would say is that if I had to have an all-in-one package, so sound and vision, I'd definitely have the Bowers and Wilkins soundbar. But I would also potentially use the sub pre-out just to add a little extra bottom end to it. It's the only thing and that's more for movie watching than music. Difficult. It'd have to be the Sony A95K image panel.
Yeah.
Motion processing would be probably Sony.
Sony again. Yeah.
And
the games of the game handling,
gaming side would be
LG.
LG. Yeah. And then smart TV would be WebOS.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Although Android TV and Google TV are
definitely getting a lot better,
coming on very well. So that award could no longer be in LG's hands next year. You'll have to tune in and find out. Any other questions? Will we ever get the perfect TV? Short answer, no. Probably not. Because again, your use case is going to be different. Your room's going to be different. How you want to use the TV is going to be different. There's not going to be one product that fits all. And that's a good thing. You don't want one product that fits all unless price is an issue, and then you're looking for a value all-rounder. If you are looking for something that is perfect, then yeah, it ain't going to happen, I don't think, in terms of the word perfect. I think you need another definition. Jules?
Sorry, say that again?
I think you need another definition than perfect. I don't think we're ever going to see a perfect TV.
Well, it's. I mean, we're talking about the Sony. I really like it. I really, really like it. The one thing I'm thinking about, which would probably put off gamers again, would be that slight red fringe. There's a slight, it's ever so faint, but you can pick that up. Is it going to be a perfect TV? Well, the Sony's got great uniformity, but it's sort of marked down on that one. I don't know how they're going to do it, to be honest. We will see, won't we? But let's put this historically. Let's put it in context. Where we were 10 years ago in terms of TVs.
Exactly.
Incredible. Funnily enough, I actually calibrated a brand new Pioneer Kuro the other day. It had been in a box. It had been in a box for all these years. And God, that was lovely. It was really nice.
Yeah, but again,
We've come along one way.
But we now know the flaws of those TVs, don't we?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think a lot of it, sometimes it's rose-tinted specs, isn't it? Sometimes when you look back, people used to always say, oh, but CRT was the best. No, CRT wasn't. It never was. It's people. Anyway, there's another one. Evening, gents. Samsung QN90B, Sony X90K. Which TV will be the better choice? That was from Defy. Unfortunately, I haven't seen the QN90, and I'm still waiting on an X90K or an X95K. So at this moment in time, like I say, everything's been late coming to market, and it's been a real rush to get things done. I haven't seen either of those TVs. Hopefully we will at some point before the year is out. So unfortunately, I can't give you a best of which one to go for. If you get a chance to go and see them close to each other in a store, that'd be my recommendation for that. Unfortunately, I haven't seen them yet, so I can't answer it. Sorry. And then what else are we looking at? Looking at the for LG C2 in the Black Friday sale. Does it come with 4 HDMI? Yes, 4 HDMI 2.1 connections on the C2. The review of the C2 is on AVForums. You go and have a look. We've reviewed the 42, 55 and 65. So those reviews are up there. We might even have a 65 C2 for sale. Have a look at the classifieds. That might be coming up soon. I might even calibrate it for you as well. Nigel Henry, speaking of ambient light, I have D65 LEDs on the rear of a 65-inch LG OLED, and for general viewing, it's superb. However, I recently realised with the blacks being so good, and then it cuts off. So Nigel, if you want your answer to your question, you're going to have to type a little bit more. And I think, what TVs do you guys personally own in your living rooms from an Untouchable? Jules.
I have an LG C1.
Okay. And that's one that you went out and purchased and own.
Yep. Went out and purchased that. Previous to that, it was an LG B8, which my dad now owns.
Okay.
So, I mean, for me, historically, I struggled with Android on a television, which was one reason I didn't go for Sony in the past, but now I'd be really tempted by that. But for me, the LG C1 just does everything really quite well, really pretty well. It's a terrific all rounder.
Yeah, I don't own it. I don't own a TV.
Oh.
I haven't owned a TV for
Rediffusion, Radio Rentals.
No, not as long as that. Probably about 4 or 5 years since I've actually owned a TV that I actually went out and purchased. And the reason for that is I have 2 to 7 TVs at a time coming through the door. So even if I owned a TV, the amount of time it would actually spend on the TV rack being used in the living room, very little. It probably sit for most of the year at the side of the room while everything else came through. There's just so much comes through my room that it's pointless me owning a TV. I know that the follow-up's going to be, well, which one would you go and buy? If I had the money, and I don't, but if I did, I'd probably go with the Sony A95K just for the ultimate in picture quality. Mm-hmm. But then again, I do like the Philips that's sitting here at the minute. I do like Ambilight. We've had Ambilight for a number of months with TVs sitting here, and as soon as you take it away, you really notice that. So maybe some bias lighting is what I need when I'm reviewing other TVs. But no, I don't own a TV. So I hope that answers your question, Untouchable. And Nigel did follow up on his question. He says he switches them off for film content. Yes, I can see why you would do that. It depends how bright you've set your bias light. That's the main thing. Setting the brightness correctly, because what you don't want is too bright. If you got it too bright, you're going to crush blacks. You're going to lose details in the shadows and so on if the light is too bright behind the TV. So it needs to be balanced. So if you've got any way of dimming those lights and just experiment with it. If you don't have a lux meter or anything like that, just experiment. Put something on that's got a lot of shadow detail. And then just see, try and find that balance, sitting in your normal seating position, and just try different brightnesses until you find something that works. Because even watching 235 movies in the dark, you want a little bit of bias light in there, just to help the eye. But again, you don't want it too bright, because then you're going to crush blacks. You're going to lose details in the shadows.
Well, there is a SMPTE specification for it.
Yeah.
For grading studios, which is 5 nits. So if you are able to measure it, 5 nits is the value nowadays for that. It's changed. It used to be 10% of peak output, but it's now 5 nits.
You can soon disappear down a rabbit hole with this, because again, you've got wall color. So what is the color of the wall behind the TV? Is it pure white? Is it? We can really start to deep dive, and I'm not going to do that mid-gray, and again, a lot of forum members have a lot of information up on the forums. We go and have a look at the home cinema build threads and that kind of thing. There are paints out there that are specified for grading suites. I forget the name of it now, but I did search it out and had the paint mixed specifically for my cinema room. So the information is on the forums. That's where I found it. It had the paint code and what the name was and where to go and get it. Again, there's all different things that we could get into, but we're running a little bit over now. So thank you very much for your questions tonight. I hope we've answered all of them. If you're listening a little bit later in the week and not live, then please do get your questions in. Get them into the thread underneath this podcast on AVForums. And like I say, as soon as myself and Jules have got 5 minutes to spare, we will get onto them and answer the questions for you. But thank you very much for watching. You know the drill by now. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget about AVForums podcast. It's our separate channel on YouTube. We'd really like it if you went and subscribed there. We'd want to try and hit 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. I believe we're on about 500 and something at the minute. So if you would do us a favor and go over and subscribe to that channel, it really would be appreciated. But that's it tonight. Jules, thank you very much for joining us all the way in Italy. I hope your calibration training course goes well, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Thanks very much, mate.
Cheers, Phil.
And thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you again very soon. Good night.